this has kind of bookended and kind of contrasted the feeling that we had only a few days ago. And we feel like we couldn't have this episode and put it out without putting in a little mention of the death of our Lord of the Mark, our King of the Golden Hall, King Theoden of Rohan himself, Bernard Hill. So we just wanted to mention that quickly towards the end of this podcast. And Dave and I were actually away this weekend when the news broke, and we were together when the news came through, and it was truly devastating. And we just had to hug it out. We just had to kind of talk about it and kind of go, this for me, I don't know, we didn't get into too much the other day, Dave, but for me, I think this is the first proper kind of emotional death of one of our acting heroes from the Lord of the Rings, because obviously we've lost Christopher Lee and we've lost Ian Holm. Christopher Lee, people knew that was coming for a long, long time, and he was, he was a ripe old age. Ian Holm, he wasn't quite as old, but I think he had been, again, it wasn't so sudden. This one was really quite sudden. It was unexpected. He was only, I believe, 79. He was due to go to Comic-Con. He was
supposed to be at Comic-Con as well.
Yeah, and he just basically he came down, felt unwell, and passed away in quite a quick period. So, but I mean, just King Theoden, Dave. What comes to your mind when you think of his character and you think of Bernard Hill's portrayal?
Well, we've talked about many times of how much we loved Bernard Hill, and he's kind of almost underappreciated, or kind of the person that you wouldn't think of the most. King Theoden, you wouldn't think of him the most when you think of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but it's like the more and more you watch it, the more you appreciate his character and his performance, especially. Some of one of the most emotional scenes is his death scene. One of the most triumphant scenes is his speech before the ride of the Pelennor Fields. So yeah, it is the more and more I watch the trilogy that I realize how incredible he is. And I also saw, I'm not sure if you've seen this clip, I know Fellowship of Fans shared it, and it was the four hobbits when they were basically paying homage to Bernard Hill. And I think it was the actor Billy Boyd said that his lines, he resonated, or he spoke the lines that he spoke were like the truest to Tolkien in the three movies. And
like he got Tolkien's message across better than anybody else, or something like that. Yeah, I did see that, and it was really touching.
And also, it wasn't that long ago as well. It must have only been a couple of months ago that I think the four hobbits were on with Bernard as well at some other kind of Comic-Con or some sort of convention, and somebody put the mic to Bernard and said, like, "Oh, what do you think? What do you think it's like having the four hobbits back together, or the 5e together?" And he just started breaking down and crying, and he just said, like, these were some of the best years we had, and some of the best friends, and it was just such an emotional and incredible time that they spent together. And you're right, you mentioned it at the beginning of this podcast that, like, it's such a close-knit group that all filmed together, and we haven't really seen anything like that in anything like Star Wars, Harry Potter. Like, there's always been like fallouts between someone, but it seems like everyone just loved each other. And it's kind of like football teams now, when they need to go and they get the right mentality of players. I feel like Peter Jackson cast the right mentality of people that weren't too big or too self-centered. They were all just like really good, humble people before they were incredible actors. But Bernard Hill was certainly one of the best, in my opinion.
Yeah, very well put, and I couldn't agree more. I think what we were saying as well about that, I think that first of all, this cast and crew, we said it a couple of times that they're such a tight knit group and they seem to love each other so much. I feel like they did love each other so much 25 years ago, but I imagine, and like they got on so well and they became like best friends. A lot of them, the hobbits, they're all like inseparable almost, especially like Merry and Pippin, Dom and Billy Boyd, and
Elijah.
And Elijah as well,
Oh,
I
sorry.
suppose, yeah. No, I was just going to say, just those two, especially, you know, with having their own podcast together. But, like, I mean, we see them all the time going out for meals and stuff. I feel like as the years are going on, they're just getting closer together and they're getting even tighter. And I think I think the reason for that is that when they were all, like, you know, Elijah was 18, Billy Boyd was, like, 30, and he was the eldest of the four hobbits. I believe that, you know, at that time they were still quite young and still early in their acting careers, and they kind of maybe thought, oh, this is what, you know, it's always like it, this is normal. And then over the last 20 years, they've seen, oh no, that was special. That was something different. And they're kind of all almost looking back and appreciating it even more now than they did then. And when they were there, they already had this amazing level of appreciation. So just that starting at a really, really high level and then just it going up and increasing tenfold. So almost like the way that Star Wars fans love Christian Haydenson, or Hayden, what's his name? Hayden Christensen?
Hayden Christensen.
I call him Christian Haydenson. Oh, God.
That just sounds like someone from Denmark or something.
I was like, is he a footballer? Yeah, he's a striker for Denmark. So Hayden Christensen, like the way Star Wars fans love him now because they appreciate what he did like 20 years ago. It's like that level of growth of love is what's happened in the Lord of the Rings community, but it also initially started out at a really high level of love. So I don't know, it's kind of like a weird thing that over the years it's only just gotten even more and more, you know, love filled, this community. But just to go back to talk about Bernard Hill for a quick moment, I also wanted to say that Dave and I, we have been working away in the background. We've been recording a couple of episodes for our season 3 of this podcast. And we've already recorded and we've kind of postmarked there for the first episode of episode 3, our first episode of season 3 to be all about King Theoden. And this was the plan before he actually passed away. So you will hear that episode if you listen to it. And at that time, he hadn't died. We didn't know anything about that. So, but the reason I mention it now is because that was only a few weeks ago where I was doing the research for that episode. And I went back and I was just, you know, kind of involving and investing myself in the character of King Theoden. I was going back, I was looking through the books for quotes, and I was just like falling in love all over again with the character of King Theoden. And then you go and you watch the movies and you think like, he just brought this character to life so well. He just kind of literally, it's lifted from the pages and it's just put straight onto the screen. And King Theoden is one of the best written characters in the whole Lord of the Rings. And Bernard Hill, as Dave rightly said, every time I watch the film, I get a higher appreciation for him. And maybe because The Fellowship of the Ring is probably the film I watch the most. I agree with you, Dave, that when you think of the Lord of the Rings stars and actors, he might not be the first person that you think of. But then we spoke about it again on another podcast recently. The most emotive moments in all the trilogy, for me, I think he's got at least 2 of them. I feel like his death is a scene that, I think I said this in a recent podcast, that there are 3 moments for me that I like tear up the most. And 2 of them have Bernard Hill in them. They are the scene where, and again, this is for me also number 4 on my list would be the you bow to no one kind of thing. For me, number 1 is Boromir's death, but then numbers 2 and 3 are Theoden's death, and then also Theoden when he's just buried Theodred and he's talking to Gandalf and he kind of breaks down and he just lets out all his emotion. For me, that's also, those 2 scenes really kind of get me choked up and they bring a tear to my eye. So again, I really have to just say my appreciation for Bernard Hill was immense, and he will be missed. And also, of course, we should mention he was also Captain Edward Smith from the Titanic films as well. So another huge role that he...
Is that his name?
Edward. Eddie.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
Captain Edward
Eddie,
Smith. Yeah, so R.I.P. Bernard Hill.
R.I.P. Yeah, so we dedicate this short podcast to Bernard Hill, and also we will, as I said, be starting season 3 with our episode on King Theoden, and again we will also dedicate that one to Bernard Hill.
I go to my fathers, in whose mighty company I shall not now feel ashamed.